Alright people, so welcome to Jumbo IAS and welcome to UPSC Prelims Phoenix batch. In this batch, we revise your entire syllabus for UPSC Prelims 2026, like everything, static portion as well as current affairs. And we will do this revision through 7,000 plus MCQs. Yes, through this batch, you'll get to revise everything. Plus, you'll practice more than 7,000 MCQs and ample tests. Test series is included in this batch. Now, the thing is that those who have joined us, well, you know the drill, okay? You know we give you daily targets, and based on those targets, we also give you notes. Now, today is the lecture which is dedicated to polity current affairs, and today's targets were legislature, union legislature, which is parliament, and state legislature. So, all the current affairs in the past 1 year with respect to parliament and state legislature shall be discussed today, okay? The notes have been given to you. I hope you have revised them and then you are sitting for this lecture. So we will discuss whatever was there in the notes through a set of 10 MCQs. So we are gaining two things. We are revising whatever was there in the notes as far as current affairs are concerned, plus we are practicing 20 MCQs. So it's a good thing. It's a good combination, revision through MCQs. Nonetheless, as I mentioned before, today's targets were Parliament and State Legislature. So without further ado, without further delay, let's straight away jump into the lecture. All right, so let's begin. So current affairs, polity, day 2, and these were our targets for today, Parliament and State Legislature. Right? And there were some miscellaneous news items also related to overall legislature. Okay. So we'll be revising whatever current affairs were there in the past 1 year and we'll be practicing 20 MCQs. So let's start with question number 1. Okay. Regarding the office of Lok Sabha Speaker, consider the following statements. Article 96, under Article 96, the Speaker can speak and take part in the proceedings of the House while a resolution for their removal is under consideration, but they cannot vote in the first instance. The Speaker does not vacate their office upon the dissolution of Lok Sabha, but remains until the first meeting of the new House. The Speaker personally chairs the Ethics Committee and Privileges Committee. Okay, now listen to me very carefully. Well, Speaker, one qualification for Speaker of Lok Sabha is that he has to be an MP from Lok Sabha. Okay. Now, as long as this Speaker is acting as the Speaker, well, the process is that there is a resolution and the members vote. The Speaker does not vote in the first instance, but if there is a tie, the Speaker has casting vote. This is the normal procedure when the Speaker is acting as Speaker. But if the resolution is related to removal of Speaker, then you cannot give this power to Speaker. And in that instance, Speaker acts as an ordinary MP. Okay? What does an ordinary MP do? They take part in the proceedings of the resolution. They vote in the first instance. But because now the Speaker is acting as an ordinary MP, he does not have casting vote. Right? So, Speaker can speak and take part in the proceedings of the House while a resolution for their removal is under consideration as an ordinary MP, not as a Speaker, and can vote in the first instance also. The only difference would be that the Speaker won't have the casting vote. Speaker won't have a casting vote. Why? Because now he's not acting as a Speaker because the resolution is related to his removal only. So, why should you give him that power? He'll act as an MP. So, he cannot, no, he can vote in the first instance, not casting vote. So, first statement is false. Speaker does not vacate their office upon dissolution of Lok Sabha but remains until the first meeting of the House. That is absolutely true. As soon as the Lok Sabha is dissolved, the Speaker does not resign immediately. He stays in the office, he or she stays in the office until the new Lok Sabha is elected and the first sitting is scheduled for that new Lok Sabha. Okay, so this statement is absolutely correct. Now, the Speaker appoints the members of Ethics Committee, not members, I'm sorry, chairpersons of Ethics Committee and Privileges Committee. But Speaker does not personally chair Ethics Committee and Privileges Committee. Okay, Speaker is not the chairman or chairperson of this. Yes, Speaker is chairperson of certain committees. You should know the names of those committees, like Rules Committee, General Purpose Committee. Okay, the committee that decides rules for Lok Sabha, general purposes of Lok Sabha, and Business Advisory Committee. How the business of Lok Sabha should be planned. Speaker is a chairperson to these committees, but not other committees. Okay. And as far as Ethics Committee and Privileges Committees are concerned, well, their chairpersons are appointed by Speaker, but Speaker himself or herself is not the chairperson of these committees. Right? So this is also false. The answer would come out to be B. Okay. Question number 2. With reference to removal of speaker in the Indian Parliament, consider the following statements. A resolution for removal requires an effective majority, which is majority of all the then members of the House. In March 2026, a removal resolution against Speaker Om Birla was passed via voice vote. The charges for removal must be based on specific grounds mentioned in Article 94 of the Constitution. Now look, well, to remove a speaker, you need to pass a resolution and it should achieve some majority. Okay, now majorities are of 4 types. Okay, there is this thing called simple majority, which is all the then members present and voting. So if Lok Sabha is, well, 545 members, only 200 are present, then the majority of those 200 members. Okay, then there is this thing called absolute majority. Now, what is absolute majority? Well, it doesn't matter how many members are present, the majority should be minimum half of 545, which is 272, more than 272 people. Okay, absolute majority is majority of the total membership of the House. Okay, currently it's 543 because 2 Anglo-Indian system has been removed. Okay, then there is effective majority. Among these 543 total membership, let's suppose 5 were disqualified. Okay, 5 were disqualified and now the membership is 538. So the present strength of Lok Sabha is 538. Majority of 538 would be effective. And then there is special majority, which we all know is 2/3 present and voting and absolute majority. Okay, so for removal of speaker and chairperson of Rajya Sabha also, you require effective majority. This is absolutely true. Okay, now yes, in March 2026, a resolution for removal of Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla was moved, but it was not passed. Otherwise, Om Birla, the Speaker of the Honorable Speaker of the House, would not have been the Speaker. Okay, he still is the Speaker. So the resolution was defeated because the government was in majority. Okay, so it was not passed, it was defeated, but the resolution was moved. And if you have been following the news, you know about this, right? Now, on what grounds can the speaker be removed? If you want to remove the speaker, what are the grounds? Are the grounds mentioned in Constitution? Well, the Constitution is silent on the grounds. It is upon the members of the House to decide why they are removing the speaker. Okay, the Constitution won't mention the grounds on which you can remove the speaker. For example, for a Supreme Court judge, you can remove a Supreme Court judge on proved misbehavior and incapacity. These are the grounds mentioned. Okay, only remove on proved misbehavior and incapacity, but no such grounds are mentioned as far as speaker is concerned. So this is also false. The answer would come out to be A. All right. Next. Which of the following cases establish that the speaker's decision on disqualification under 10th schedule is subject to judicial review? Okay. Now look, 10th schedule deals with anti-defection. Okay. Now we all know what is anti-defection. If a member of a particular party resigns from that party and joins another party, he shall be disqualified as an MP. Right. Now, if a person is accused of defection, who takes the final decision with respect to the disqualification? The final decision lies with speaker and his decision shall be final. Okay, but in 1992, Supreme Court opined that, well, the speaker's decision is a judicial decision. Okay, kind of a judicial decision, quasi-judicial decision. Therefore, all quasi-judicial decisions are subject to judicial review of the Supreme Court. Hence, the speaker's decision is final, but it is subject to judicial review. Judiciary can inquire into the motives of speaker in removing that particular member. Okay, so this case was Kihoto Holohan case in 1992, which said that speaker's decision is not final, it is subject to judicial review with respect to anti-defection. Okay, so the answer would come out to be C. All right, next. Consider the following comparisons between Indian and UK speakers. So both systems are parliamentary systems and in both systems we have speaker. Now, what is the difference between Indian speaker of Lok Sabha and UK speaker of House of Commons? Okay, the UK speaker must resign from their party immediately upon election, whereas the Indian speaker does not formally resign. The UK speaker's re-election is usually uncontested by majority parties, whereas Indian speaker contests general elections on party ticket. In both systems, speaker's interpretation of the rules of procedure is final and cannot be challenged in a court of law. Now, generally, well, UK speaker and Indian speaker are same, but there are a few differences. Okay, what are those differences? First of all, the speaker's office should be impartial, right? Neutral. Therefore, in UK, when a speaker is elected as a speaker, he must resign from his party so as to remove all conflicts of interest. Okay, now he's not a member of that party, now he's a neutral arbitrator. Clear? That is the system that UK follows. But in India, we expect the speaker to be neutral, impartial, but he remains the member of his own political party. He need not resign. He can voluntarily resign. Okay, Somnath Chatterjee did that, but well, the current speaker did not resign from his political party. He very much remains the member of his political party. So you need not resign. The constitution does not bound you, or it's not mandatory basically, right? So UK speaker must resign, Indian speaker does not need to formally resign. That's true. But we expect him to be fair and impartial. The UK speaker's re-election as speaker is generally uncontested because once he becomes a speaker, he's not a member of that political party. Therefore, well, people expect the speaker to be impartial and neutral. Therefore, the elections are uncontested. Whereas in India's case, well, the thing is that he or she still remains the member of their political party. Now, once the Lok Sabha is dissolved, he has to again fight elections on that party ticket, get elected as MP, and then fight for elections as speaker. You understand? So, is usually uncontested. This is also true. Now, in both systems, speaker's interpretation is final and cannot be challenged in a court of law. No, we just discussed that in India's case, after Kihoto Holohan case, certain decisions of the speaker, especially with respect to anti-defection, are subject to judicial review by the Supreme Court or High Court, right? So it is subject to judicial review. Therefore, this statement is false. Not all decisions are subject to judicial review. Speaker is independent, no interference from the courts in general cases. But after Kihoto Holohan case, in case of anti-defection, the decision is subject to judicial review. Okay, not all except 10th schedule. Otherwise, in every decision, speaker is independent. No court can interfere. No Supreme Court, no High Court can interfere. Okay, so it's just because of anti-defection that this third statement is false. In UK's case, that is absolutely correct. There is no Kihoto Holohan case in UK. Okay, so the answer would come out to be A, right? Next. Regarding the election of Vice President of India, which of the following statements are correct? Electoral college includes elected members of state legislative assemblies. Okay, so let's directly address this. The election of Vice President of India. Well, when it comes to the election of President of India, who has the right to vote? Well, the members of an electoral college. Okay, now who are the members of this electoral college? Well, MPs, members of parliament, and MLAs of state legislative assembly. They are part of this electoral college. But remember, there are certain MPs who are nominated also. There are certain MLAs also who can be nominated. Those are not allowed. Only elected members of parliament and state legislative assemblies are part of electoral college. This is president. But in case of vice president, things are a little different. In case of vice president, the electoral college consists of only MPs. And these MPs can be elected, can be nominated as well. No state legislative assembly, no MLAs, only MPs, nominated or elected, both are allowed, both are part of this electoral college. This is the case with vice president. Okay, so the electoral college consists of all members of parliament, including both elected and nominated members. Absolutely correct. You should know this. Okay, if you have studied static polity, you should know this. Though, don't worry, we will cover static polity as well in our batch. Okay, all right, so the answer is B. Next. Consider the following statements about Vice President acting as President. While acting as President, the VP receives the salary and allowances of the President. VP can act as President for a maximum period of 1 year. While acting as President, the VP can still exercise their casting vote in Rajya Sabha. Okay. Now, the office of VP was created so that in case there is a vacancy in the office of President, okay, the VP shall act as acting President. because our constitution has made it clear there shall be a president of India. If there is no president of India, then, well, all executive legislative decisions are taken in his name. I mean, legislative, by legislative I mean you sign bills and all. That would be suspended if there is no president. So as soon as there is a vacancy in the office of president, VP acts as a president. Clear? But our constitution is very clear. If there is a vacancy in the office of president, the elections for next president must take place within 6 months. Okay, within 6 months, you have to elect a new president. So the maximum time period that a VP can act as president is 6 months. Clear? But what about that time when the president's office is not vacant? The president is very much hale and hearty, healthy, and doing his job, his or her job. Then what do you do? Okay. Well, the VP's office cannot be a lame duck office, right? He has to do something. So the constitution created another role for vice president, and that is, while he's not acting as president, he shall act as chairman of Rajya Sabha. Like there is speaker of Lok Sabha, chairman of Rajya Sabha. Okay. Now, when the office of president is vacant, then VP shall not act as chairman of Rajya Sabha. For 6 months, he shall be president. Maximum 6 months. So while acting as president, the VP receives the salary and allowances of the president. Absolutely correct. VP can act as a president for a maximum period of 1 year. No, 6 months. So this is false. While acting as president, the VP can still exercise their casting vote in Rajya Sabha. No, because when he is president, there is no role as chairman of Rajya Sabha. All the roles are handled by deputy chairman, who's an elected member of Rajya Sabha. You understand? So when you are acting as a president, then you are not chairman of Rajya Sabha. Okay? Then you don't even have casting vote also. So third statement is also correct. The answer would come out to be A. Okay? Next.